Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Sweet Shoes and Book Reviews with Nicole. This week I'm going to be reviewing the book The Lonely Hours by Shannon Morgan while making red velvet cake pops, which I will get into during the video. Last week I did review the book A Novel Love Story by Ashley Postins while I made some delicious honey macaroons. So if you have not seen that video yet, I suggest you go on over and watch that. But let's get started here. So I won't be talking too much about the actual recipe itself, but down below I will have the ingredients as I'm going along, and then I will also link the recipe and the instructions for what I'm making down here below in the description, so that way if anybody would like to try to recreate what I'm making, you absolutely can. In the book The Lonely Hours, the main character Edwina, who also goes by Edie, she learns that she has inherited a huge castle in Scotland along with an island and a red diamond, and she's kind of like a little in disbelief over this because she was orphaned as a child. So she was dropped off at an orphanage like right at birth, and she never knew who her biological parents were or any of her family were. So she learns that she's inherited this estate basically from her family, and she's just kind of like, this can't be possible. The only family she's ever had was her husband, who is deceased a few years prior to this happening, and her teenage daughter Neve. So when she finds out that she has inherited these things, it also said that this red diamond that she inherited has been lost for years, and there's legend around this castle and the diamond that they're cursed. And that terrible things happen. So in Celtic culture, there is a Scottish Halloween, which I believe is pronounced Samhain. I had to Google that because I did not know if I was pronouncing that right in the book. But that's what Google told me, that it's called Samhain. Basically, every year on Samhain, something tragic happens on this island. It's also rumored that on this island there is a grotto, and inside the grotto there's a well with a witch, and people go and make deals with the witch, and this is how this curse just keeps going. So this diamond has been lost for years. So it's said that if she can find it, then the diamond's hers, but nobody's ever found it, and people have tried to find this diamond, like townsfolk, people, like everybody's tried to find this diamond, and they just can't. Once she finds out this news, her daughter and her decide they're gonna go up to this castle, and they're going to like see it, decide what they're gonna do with it, probably fix it up and sell it, you know, whatever is gonna come with that. So they take the trip up there, and the castle has been empty for several years at this point. The family that used to occupy this castle was called the Mundrell family, and this is supposedly Edie's family that she never knew about. And this diamond that she's going to be supposedly inheriting, if she ever finds it, is called the Mundrell Red, because it was very important to basically like the history of her family in this castle, which you'll learn as you go along and read the book. So not only is it rumored that this castle and the island that she's inheriting is cursed, it's also said that it's haunted. This castle is haunted with all the deceased Mundrells. And Edie's just kind of like, I don't believe in ghosts, but okay, like we're just gonna go and we're gonna check it out. So once Edie and Neve get to the castle, they have like two different agendas. Like, Edie is very set on finding out who her biological parents are, because this is something she always wanted to know and understand why she was orphaned as a child, while her teenage daughter is just more so obsessed with finding this Mundrell red diamond. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if somebody sat me down and told me that I had inherited a haunted castle, I would say, miss me with that, and they could pass it down to somebody else. But obviously that doesn't make for a great book. The book does transition from present day to back in October of 1965, which it's October 31st to be exact, so that's that Scottish Halloween, Samhain. And you get to learn in the present day. You're reading all about Edie and Eve and what's going on with them in this castle. And then when it transitions back to 1965, you're learning about her family, the Mundrells. You're learning about each person, who they are to her in the family, and their story, and just like the history of this castle, this diamond. So it is interesting to kind of flip back and forth and read about back in 1965, and it's also very interesting, you know, all the experiences that Edie and Eve have once they get to this castle and the host of characters that they run into along the way. While you read this book, you are going to come across a host of people, and it's some are living and some are not. So it's definitely a wild ride. Throughout the course of the book too, Neve really kind of digs into the history of the Mundrell family and this castle, so you really start to learn a lot of the backstory. Like what Neve is learning in the present, you're also like reading about when it flips back to 1965. I decided to do the red velvet cake pops, which are currently in the oven baking, because when reading about this book, the Mundrell red is such a prominent thing in the book. It's mentioned so much. It's basically like the whole kind of like backstory to this book. It just plays a really large role, and I figured what better than red velvet cake pops to go along with the Mundrell red in the book. Okay, so our cake is baked, cooled, and crumbled. But I do just want to make a couple of notes about the cake itself. So if you notice, it's more of like a pink color. I screwed up the recipe a little bit. The recipe called for 2 tablespoons of red food coloring, and somehow my brain computed that to just 2 drops of food coloring. So we have more of a pink velvet instead of a red velvet, but we're just gonna pretend that it's red for the sake of the video, because this is real life and sometimes things don't go according to plan. Also, I am cheating and I am going to use some jar frosting to bind my cake pops together. The reason why I'm using the jar frosting is because you only need a little bit of frosting to bind together the mixture, and my homemade frosting makes a very big batch and I just don't want it to go to waste because I won't have any reason to use it within the next couple of days. So I'm just going to use this instead. This is the Betty Crocker Rich and Creamy Vanilla Frosting. Okay, so back to the story. So I would say overall the theme of the story is this gothic mystery with some paranormal activity. And I would say that the writing style was fairly easy. The only thing that was a little bit difficult with the read itself was it, because it's set in Scotland, the author uses like, some of the characters have like a Scottish accent. I think that's, oops, I'm flicking things. I think that's what you would call it, like a Scottish accent. And the way she writes it in the book, it just kind of like is a little hard to read like in my head. It's very like slangy, but like when you read it, you do get that Scottish accent feel. It's just some of the words are just a little unclear as to what they're actually supposed to be. So that would be one of the things that I would say I did not like about the also, I would say that the book, for going back and forth between, you know, present day and like 1965, I would say that the book transitions very smoothly, which I like because I don't like when things bounce back and forth, but they're confusing. It doesn't make it for an easy read. I would definitely say if you're somebody who likes, like mysteries or ghost stories, gothic style novels, or even if you're like really big into like Scottish culture and you know, like Scotland and things like that, I would definitely say that this book is for sure for you. I think for me, the book made me feel kind of like, I don't know, definitely curious. It definitely caught my attention from the beginning. Intrigued, kind of like, it also kept me guessing, which I really, really liked. It kept me kind of like on my toes, like, you know, trying to figure out and click into place all the pieces that were kind of going on in the book. It also made me feel a little uncomfortable at times, mainly because I'm not a ghost story person. So sometimes like paranormal activity, it just kind of gives me like the heebie-jeebies. So even though it's not like a scary read, like it's not like, you know, frightening in any type of way, it just wasn't I wasn't gonna read it at night, I'll say that, just because I didn't want to, you know, go to bed with ghost stories in my head. So I haven't really like gone too much in depth about the characters in the book aside from Edie and Neve, mainly because I just don't want to spoil anything. You know, I kind of want you guys to like read the book and see the characters for yourself and meet them. But I will say one of my favorite characters in the book, her name is Lottie. And the only thing I'm going to say about Lottie is she is one of the ghosts that lives in the Mundrell Castle. And I just love her character. Like, you get to learn a lot of her backstory when the book shifts back to 1965. And just like, you know, I don't know. I don't want to give it away. So I'm just going to say I really, really loved her character out of all of them. And I hope when you guys read the book, you'll kind of understand why and you'll love her as much as I do. So I will say I do feel like the author achieved what she set out to do. She definitely gave you that Scottish feeling, and she definitely wrapped up the history of the family along with, you know, keeping that present day feel with Edie and Neve. I wouldn't say I like loved or hated this book. I would just say that I definitely liked it enough to keep reading. It's not my usual genre that I would typically read, so it's not a book I would have picked for myself. It came in my monthly book box subscription, and I will do a short video on that subscription box at some point. So that is one of the reasons why I read this book. But overall, I do recommend this read. I would say if you're somebody who likes ghosts and ghost stories, then this is definitely a read for you. I would say I rate it 3 out of 5 cupcakes. Okay guys, that's it for this video. If you liked this review, then please give it a like and a share. Feel free to comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe so that way you can see past videos as well as future videos to come. And here's our final product of the cake pops. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and see you next time.